So I was doing a little research, and here's something I noticed. Now, the top 5 videos of your YouTube channel, Sean Clinton Shadow Productions, the top 5 videos have a combined total of over 1 million views.
Oh,
And all
wow.
five, yeah, all 5 are on the same subject matter, skinwalkers. Okay, so for those of you that may not be watching, that may not be familiar with skinwalkers, a brief description maybe, and correct me if I'm wrong, basically they're considered evil medicine men that have the ability to transform into different animals. And so I have sort of a 2-part question and then another question after that. The 2-part is, especially when it comes to the subject of skinwalkers, did your family or tribal members voice any concerns about your speaking so openly about them? Because since it's been considered a very taboo subject for discussion of skinwalkers among indigenous peoples, even more so, I would say, for the Navajo. And second part to that, what do you personally feel is the fascination that so many cultures around the world have with the shapeshifter mythology?
So within our family, there really wasn't really any question about or really worry that came with it, because at a very young age, we my brother was more so of a medicine man that went against the dark. So dealing with skinwalkers was something that we kind of always did for like a good decade by the time we already started doing that. Wow. So we knew how to kind of go against and protect ourselves from these beings. Now, it was from the people that really didn't know us, that was from the tribe, that would kind of tell us like, hey, you shouldn't be talking about this. Hey, you shouldn't be, excuse me. Hey, you shouldn't be like speaking to this. It's taboo. Yeah, that there's those stories, but there's always a reason behind it, because there's that fear that they, in a sense, when you talk about them or when you think about them, you're in a sense making a spiritual connection with them, and then they'll perk their ears. It's kind of like when you're speaking about somebody, you sneeze or your ear starts ringing or something like that, and you're just like, hey, I think someone's talking about me, something like that. And then they'll go out looking for you, and then they might witch you and all that stuff. So I always say in my videos, it's like, never talk about them unless you know how to handle them. And there's very few people on the reservation that do. There's some people out there that know how to go against them, and they know for themselves how to go against it. So could you remind me what the second part of that? The methodology.
Yeah. What do you feel is that, I mean, there's so many cultures around the world that have a certain shifter mythology.
Yeah.
What do you think the fascination is with that?
I just think the fascination is just being able to be a regular human being and to be able to learn how to shapeshift is something that is something that people always like, they don't believe, but there's so many accounts of them being able to do that it's just like, okay, there's so many accounts of this that it just can't be fake. There has to be some truth to this. So that's why I made the skinwalker video, because skinwalkers are a specific type of shapeshifter. It's like a different kind of category with it. And then there's every different tribe, every different nation around the world. What was really interesting in those videos is because that video has reached so many people. I've heard so many stories about how they call them different beings all over the world. They have different names, different characteristics and everything, how they talk about them. So it's honestly a fascination, and just wanting to know more about the spiritual world is just potentials that human beings could be more than what they actually are now, is what I think the kind of the hip thing is about this stuff.
Yeah, because I just find it so fascinating. You'll see so many similar creatures in mythology around the world. I mean, in Europe, there's the woman in white. Okay, over here we call her La Llorona.
Yeah.
My dad has stories. My dad is in his early 80s, and he has a story of when he was 5 years old, and his big sister was scaring him, "Be good, or La Llorona is going to come and get you." So that's so ingrained deep in our Hispanic culture. And so with shapeshifters, it's the same thing. I mean, they're called by so many different names around the world. And one last question on the subject of shapeshifters. Now, do you think they are essentially, or as we know them here in this country, they're either an American version or a Native American variation or distant cousin to the Algonquin Wendigo? And for those of you watching or listening that may not be familiar with a Wendigo, the Wendigo is an Algonquin legend. Algonquin is a tribe from northern Canada. They're actually up there. They're called First Nations. And the mythology behind the Wendigo is that it's usually an evil spirit that comes about after someone's resorted to cannibalism. So I was just, do you see any similarities between Skinwalker and a Wendigo?
I see the similarities that I see is pretty much that they come from evil sources. The differences that I see is the Wendigo is more of a result of an evil action. Skinwalkers is more of a voluntary action, a result of a voluntary action kind of thing. So like a Skinwalker you have to go through like so many different ceremonies. You have to learn all these different songs. I'll do all these evil deeds to be able to become it. And then the Wendigo is more so of a desperate effort to either you're out in the bush, somebody dies and you have no food and you just have to consume that person, or, you were an evil person and you just resorted to that straight away. Kind of depends on the differences, but they are in the fact of an evil essence of a monstrous kind of being, I would imagine.
Okay, so one is kind of like happens by chance, and one is they have to make the conscious choice and then practice and train to be that.
Yes, correct.
You would say, okay, wow, I haven't looked at that. That's interesting.